I was 21 years old, managing a small team of house painters, when I realized something. Staying in that line of work wasn't going to take me to the success I envisioned. I needed a new path. And that's when I launched my first successful business. But at that time, I had almost no money, no experience in the industry I was entering, and very little guidance. But I had something more valuable, a vision and a drive to turn that vision into reality. And by the age of 27, I earned my first million. But here's what most people get wrong. They focus on the end result, the financial success, without understanding the principles that get you there. Success isn't a straight line, and it certainly isn't guaranteed just because you start making money. What separates the top 5%, the ones who master long-term success, from everyone else are 6 core principles. These principles shape not only how you do business, but also how you handle setbacks, manage relationships, and stay motivated through the highs and the lows. I've seen firsthand how powerful these principles are. I've also watched entrepreneurs fail, sometimes after accidentally making a bit of money, because they either didn't have these principles or they lost sight of them. Mastering these 6 principles is what sets the truly successful apart, and it's something that less than 5% of people ever fully achieve. So, what are these 6 principles that drive lasting success? Number 1, thinking in abundance. At the core of successful entrepreneurship lies a critical shift in mindset, the ability to think in abundance. And this principle is not just about being optimistic, it's about understanding how the world works in terms of opportunities. Many people operate with scarcity in mind. They believe that resources, opportunities, and even success are limited, as if there's only a small amount to go around. And this type of thinking keeps them playing small, protecting what little they have instead of reaching for more. Thinking in abundance is the opposite. It's about realizing that the world is full of opportunities, an endless stream of ideas, people, and resources just waiting to be tapped into. You don't need to worry that someone else's success means that there's less left for you. Instead, you should believe that there's always more to gain and new opportunities just around the corner. It's a mindset that opens doors, literally. And this brings me to one of the most practical aspects of abundance thinking: reaching out to the right people. If you believe that opportunities are out there, you also start believing that anyone, no matter how successful, is within reach. Even the door of the world's biggest entrepreneur can be opened if you knock it the right way. The mistake most people make is that they never knock at all. They assume that somebody at the top is too busy, too important, or too far removed to respond to a random message. But the truth is, you'll be surprised how often they do. Pick up the phone and call. If you don't have the phone number, send an email. You'd be amazed how many high-level entrepreneurs will reply if your message is compelling enough, of course. It might not always be the answer you want to hear, but more often than not, you get a response. And that's the first step. Just getting your foot in the door, building that connection can lead to bigger things down the road. But abundance thinking doesn't just apply to opportunities. It extends to money as well. A lot of people think they need to have money before they can start a business, but that's simply not true. In fact, if you have a strong enough idea, the money will find its way to you. Let me share a quick story about one of my early experience with funding. I was 21 and had this idea for a CD-ROM project. At that time, you still had CD-ROMs. It was ambitious and I needed financing. So I walked into the bank and asked for a couple of $100,000. Now you can imagine the look of the bank manager's face. This young guy, almost no money, no track records, walking in and asking for a fortune. But he listened to my idea. I showed him my business plan and we went over my calculations. And to his credit, he didn't laugh me out of the room. In fact, he gave me a few tips to improve my plan and asked if I could show him a prototype. A few meetings later, we were walking through the budget again, and you know what? We discovered that the way I had calculated it, the less we sold, the more money we were making. That's a rookie mistake, right? So anyone with basic understanding of business knows that's not how it works. So the bank manager chuckled and he said, "Send me the budget and I'll work on it over the weekend." So that Monday, I got a call. And he said, "I've adjusted your budget. And by the way, you're going to need an extra 100,000. I couldn't believe it. And he even told me that he will submit the loan request to himself, since he was in charge of the decision by the end of that day. And he will have an answer by that Friday. So that Friday, I was invited back to sign the paperwork. Who could have imagined that? A 20-year-old guy, no money, walking to a bank and walking out with hundreds of thousands financing. And it just goes to show, abundance thinking isn't just about opportunities. It's about believing that even when it comes to money, there's always enough out there if your idea is good enough. You don't need to have all the resources in hand to start. You just need to believe that the resources will come to you as long as you stay persistent and keep pushing your vision forward. Number 2, resilience and optimism. As an entrepreneur, setbacks are inevitable. What defines your success is not how often you stumble, but how resiliently you bounce back. And optimism plays a huge role here. It's about maintaining a positive outlook even when everything seems to be falling apart. And this isn't just blind hope. It's about believing that there's always a way forward, even if it means taking a completely different approach. Because resilience isn't just about getting back up. It's about learning from each fall and coming back stronger. And optimism is the fuel that powers resilience. It's about trusting that no matter how bad the situation looks, there's always a solution. One of the biggest setbacks I ever faced happened when we were already an established company. I remember my colleague had long dreamed of managing a large development project. And when the biggest telecom provider in the Netherlands asked us to take on a major project, he jumped at the opportunity. I was convinced because it was way outside our core focus in advertising, and there were way too many third parties involved, all managed by the telecom provider themselves. But it was his dream, and I respected that. So we agreed to take on the challenge. So we signed on for a multi-million project with a strict 3-month deadline. And of course, it wasn't long before things started to go off the rails. After 2 months, only 10% of the work had been completed. And there was no way we could finish on time. And on top of that, the budget was spiraling out of control, heading for 4 times the original estimate. And all of this was due to the third-party contractors, hired by the telecom provider themselves. They were just not delivering what they had promised. So you can imagine we were looking at a situation where missing the deadline, combined with the budget overruns, would bankrupt us. It seemed like the end of the story, and there was no way out. But instead of panicking or giving up, I took a step back and decided to face the issue head-on. I requested a meeting with the telecom provider's top executive and managers involved in the project. I drove to the headquarters that very afternoon, prepared to lay everything on the table. In the meeting, I explained the situation in clear terms. We could either stop the project right then and there, and I would file for bankruptcy. Or they could increase the budget by a factor of 4 and extend the deadline by 6 months. There wasn't much time for debate. 5 minutes later, they made a decision. The budget would be increased by a factor 3, and they agreed to hire 50 external developers at their own cost to help us finish the project. And with this support, we aimed to limit the deadline extension to just 3 additional months instead of 6. And the situation could have destroyed us, but by staying calm and taking control of the narrative, we turned the disaster into an opportunity for growth. This is what resilience in business looks like. It's about not accepting defeat when things go wrong, but instead finding creative solutions and negotiating a way forward. So the lesson here is simple. Setbacks will come, but instead of seeing them as the end, view them as challenges to overcome. Optimism helps to see you that there's always another path forward, even if it requires bold action or uncomfortable conversations. Resilience ensures that you don't crumble under pressure, but instead rise to meet those challenges. Number 3, it's not about how much money you have, but what you can invest. Because one of the biggest misconceptions about entrepreneurship is that success depends on how much money you have. The reality is that it's not about the amount of money in your bank account, it's about how you invest what you have. And here's the twist. Investing isn't just about borrowing money, managing finances, or creative bookkeeping. It's about everything you have to offer, your time, your skills, your kindness, and your commitment to your community. So let me break this down. When we talk about spending or investing, most people immediately think of financial resources, capital you can leverage, money you can borrow, or the funds you can strategically place to make more money. And yes, those things are important. Smart financial management is a key part of building any business. But if you limit your thinking to just the numbers, you're missing a huge part of the picture. In truth, what you can invest goes far beyond money. It includes the value you bring to others through your services, your relationships, and your contributions to the community. Every act of generosity, whether it's offering free services, helping a cause, or simply being kind to somebody in need, is an investment. And these investments often have a far greater return than financial capital. When I was starting out, I didn't have a lot of money to spend, but I had plenty to invest. So I invested my time, my ideas, and my energy into building relationships and offering value to others. I helped clients beyond the immediate scope of our contracts, supported projects that align with my core values, and always made sure to treat people well. At least I tried. And these things didn't cost me much, but they pay huge dividends in the long run. Think about it this way. Every interaction you have is an opportunity to invest in your reputation. And your reputation is one of the most valuable assets you can build as an entrepreneur. And it's not something you can buy. It's something you can earn through your actions. And the more you invest in your relationships, your community, and in the people around you, the stronger your reputation becomes. And that reputation will open doors, create opportunities, and bring in returns that go far beyond what any financial investment could achieve. Let's take helping a good cause as an example. When you give your time or resources to support a charity or a community project, you're not just doing something good, you're investing in something bigger than yourself. And that investment builds goodwill, enhances your network, and can lead to unexpected opportunities. People remember those who give back, and they're more likely to support your business in return. It's not transactional, it's relational. You invest in others, others invest in you. And it doesn't stop there. Being generous with your time, your skills, or even just your attitude can have profound impact on your business. Simple acts of kindness, whether it's offering free advice, helping someone solve a problem, or just being approachable, are investments that pay off in trust and loyalty. When people see that you're willing to go the extra mile, they're more likely to stick to you, recommend you, and help your business grow. Number 4, make the customer feel like a king. In business, one of the most powerful strategies you can adopt is to always exceed expectations no matter what you're dealing with. Whether it's a CEO or a junior assistant, every customer interaction is an opportunity to make somebody feel valued, respected, and like they're part of something bigger. This is not just about fulfilling their request, it's about delivering more than what's asked for. And in doing so, making the customer feel like they've been giving something truly special. One of the approaches we consistently used to do and still do is to never come back with just one idea that was requested. Instead, we would present 3 ideas. One of them would be exactly what the client asked for. Another would be a more refined or innovative version of that idea. And a third would be something completely different, something that not even considered. And this approach isn't just about delivering, it's about pushing the boundaries of what the client thought was possible. It didn't matter who was asking. If a junior assistant came to us with a task or comes, we treat their request with the same level of importance as if the director of the company had asked for it. We always make sure that even an assistant could return to the team with something exceptional, something better, and sometimes even more cost-effective than what they even had in mind themselves. The goal is to make them feel proud, to help them shine within their own enterprise or environment by showing what they could accomplish with our help. Because here's the thing, when you take the time to go beyond the basic request, you empower your clients. You give them the tools to impress their colleagues, their bosses, and their stakeholders. And even if it costs you a little bit more time or money in short term, the long-term payoff is immeasurable. The more value your clients feel, the more they appreciate you. And the more they appreciate you, the more they want to work with you again. Number 5, the most powerful thing in the world is a good idea in the hands of an entrepreneur. Because this principle may sound simple, but it's the one that can make all the difference. A good idea, when placed in the hands of an entrepreneur, is the most powerful force in the world. Ideas drive innovation, they solve problems, and they inspire people to action. But an idea, no matter how brilliant, is useless if it isn't executed. That's where the entrepreneurs comes in. The ability to take a concept and turn it into reality is what separates dreamers from doers, and it's what defines successful entrepreneurship. Throughout my career, I've seen countless examples of people with great ideas who never acted on them. They had visions that could have changed industries, solved major problems, or created entirely new markets. But those ideas remained just that. Ideas, because they didn't have the will, the courage, or determination to execute. And that's where the real power lies, not in the idea itself, but the ability to bring it to life. The process of turning an idea into something tangible is where the magic happens. It's not enough to have a vision, you have to have the guts to take risks, make mistakes, and keep pushing forward when things don't go as planned. Entrepreneurs are the ones who are always willing to take risks, who embrace the uncertainty, and are constantly looking for ways to make their idea a reality. I learned early on that having a good idea is only the first step. The real work begins when you start putting that idea into action. And here's the thing, the first version of your idea probably won't be perfect. In fact, it's almost guaranteed that it won't be, but that's okay. Part of entrepreneurial process is iterating, refining, and improving as you go. The most successful entrepreneurs aren't the ones who wait for the perfect moment or the perfect version of their idea. They're the ones who get started and adapt along the way. But it's important to remember that not every idea will be a home run. Some ideas will fail, and that's part of the process. The key is to keep going. Every failed idea teaches you something valuable and brings you one step closer to the one that will succeed. In business, things rarely go as you imagined. Market conditions change. Customer needs evolve. And sometimes your original idea no longer fits the situation. And the best entrepreneurs are the ones who can recognize when it's time to pivot and aren't afraid to make bold changes. Number 6, the big why. In the world of entrepreneurship, one of the most overlooked but crucial factors for long-term success is having a big why. And this isn't just the typical why that Simon Sinek talks about. No, this is the overreaching purpose that drives everything you do. The ultimate mission that makes all the effort worthwhile. I've seen firsthand, both as a strategist and as a coach, how dangerous it can be when entrepreneurs either don't have a big why or lose sight of it. The lack of this driving force can lead to burnout, or in worst case, even the collapse of the business. I watched entrepreneurs crash and burn, sometimes after accidentally making money for a while. It starts off well, the business grows, profit comes in, and everything seems to be working. But slowly, as the initial excitement fades, they start to feel like something is missing. It's like the energy that fueled them in the beginning starts to disappear because they no longer understand why they're doing it. Without the big why, the motivation to push through the hard times diminishes, and the business eventually suffers. One of the most striking examples of this was a good friend of mine, an entrepreneur who had already founded several successful ventures. He was the kind of person who didn't just chase after money, but wanted to build something meaningful. So when he embarked on a new business adventure, he poured his heart into it. From day one, it was a massive success. The company just took off, and it seems like he was on a fast track to another huge win. After about a year, he called me, and he sounded defeated, exhausted. So we arranged a meeting, and when I saw him, there was clearly something wrong. He looked worn out, and he told me he had lost the energy to go to the office every day. Now you must imagine that even though the business was thriving, he felt no passion for it anymore. He didn't understand why he was still putting in the effort, and everything started to feel like a grind. So during a very short coaching session, we revised his original motivation. Why did he start this venture in the first place? What did he want to bring into the world? And why was it so important that he pushed his business to the heights he hadn't yet reached? Through that process, he reconnected with his big why, the core reason he had started the business, not to just make money, but to create something that mattered, something that would make a real difference in his eyes. So that conversation changed everything for him. It reignited his passion, not just for the business, but for the purpose behind it. And from that day on, he worked harder, smarter, and with far more commitment than ever before. His energy levels skyrocketed because he wasn't just working anymore for the profit. He was working for a cause that aligned with his values and purpose. That is what the big why is about. So fast forward, and he has now conquered the entire European market with plans to expand to other continents. And this shift wasn't in his strategy or operations. It was in reconnecting with his big why. These were the 6 principles that only 5% can master. I hope you are one of them and implement them both in business and life. Good luck with your venture.